Today, we're going to dive into a question that so many of you might be asking. Why can the traditional school environment feel so challenging for our neurodivergent kids? Welcome to Schoolio's Learn Your Way series, where we talk about learning and teaching for neurodivergent minds, and for any learner who doesn't fit the traditional mold. If you're a parent who's thinking about homeschooling, this probably hits home, right? You see the struggle, the exhaustion after school, and you just get this gut feeling that the system, it just wasn't designed for them. You are definitely not alone in feeling this way. To really understand why that feeling is so common, we need to look past the curriculum and the report cards. We need to see the school day through their eyes. For them, it's often a journey through a whole world of unseen obstacles that can make just getting through the day a huge achievement. So let's start with one of the biggest and maybe most invisible hurdles, the sensory environment. Before a single lesson even begins, a neurodivergent child's brain might already be in overdrive, just trying to cope with this space around them. Let that sink in for a second. This completely reframes the whole issue. It's not about a child being unwilling to focus, it's about their energy tank already being drained just by tolerating the overwhelming sensory input of a classroom. And we're not talking about minor annoyances here. For an autistic or ADHD learner, that constant buzz from the fluorescent lights, the sudden scrape of a chair, the chatter of a classroom, each one can be a jarring distraction that adds to this really significant mental load. And this is where we see a huge conflict between what's demanded and what's needed. A classroom often demands stillness, but so many neurodivergent kids, especially those with ADHD, actually need to move to be able to focus. Physical activity releases dopamine, which literally helps them pay attention. The classroom says, be quiet, but their brains might need vocal stims like humming or repeating words just to self-regulate. It's a fundamental mismatch. So this leads us right into our next big challenge. It's not just the sensory overload. It's also this immense social pressure to conform to behavioral rules that can feel completely unnatural or even impossible for a neurodivergent child. We've all seen these rules posted on a classroom wall. Sit crisscross applesauce, quiet hands, wait your turn patiently. But for a child who needs to move to think, or who processes impulses differently, trying to follow these rules takes a tremendous amount of energy. So often, when they can't meet these expectations, it's not because they don't want to behave, it's because they literally can't. And then there's the whole issue of how misbehavior is handled. When an entire class loses a privilege because one or two kids were struggling, it can be so incredibly damaging. For an autistic learner who often has this deep, powerful sense of justice, being punished for something they didn't do can feel overwhelming and just deeply, profoundly unfair. And here's the part that's really tough. The very activities that get used as a bargaining chip for good behavior are often the exact things these kids need to regulate their bodies and their minds. Just think about it. Recess, gym, art class, these aren't just fun extras. They are essential. They give kids a chance to move, to be free, to express themselves creatively. These things are absolutely vital for their well-being and their ability to self-regulate. Taking them away as a punishment is just so counterproductive. This brings us to the academic side of things. Traditional schools often work with a really narrow definition of what success looks like, and that can be especially hard on kids who think and learn differently. Think about how success is usually measured. It's overwhelmingly about grades and test scores. But what about resilience or empathy or being a good friend? These crucial parts of being a person often go completely unrecognized, and it can leave kids who are amazing in these areas feeling like they're failing. A huge part of this is how we ask children to show us what they know. The traditional system usually defaults to a standardized test or a written essay. But what if a child could better explain a concept by having a conversation about it or by building a model? Flexible learning opens the door to all these different ways of expression, but traditional systems often don't. Okay, so after looking at all these challenges, it can feel a little disheartening. But what's the alternative? Well, this is where homeschooling can just completely change the equation. It shifts the focus from trying to force a child to fit into a system to building a system that actually fits the child. So how does homeschooling directly tackle these issues? It puts the power back in your hands. You get to create a sensory-friendly space with dimmer lights or noise-canceling headphones if that's what your child needs. You can build a schedule that includes frequent movement breaks instead of one that punishes the need for them. It's all about shifting from punitive discipline to a supportive model that helps your child build skills.
And this is the ultimate goal, isn't it? To create an atmosphere where learning feels intuitive and where stress and anxiety are replaced by curiosity and confidence. It's about nurturing a child's natural love of learning instead of watching it get snuffed out in an environment that just doesn't get them.
This is the really powerful question that homeschooling allows you to answer. It's a total shift in perspective that empowers you to create an education that truly celebrates your child for who they are, their unique strengths, and their challenges. Remember, learning doesn't have to look one way to be working. You're allowed to learn your way.